Hello everyone, today I continue the story The Ghost of KM13. Please like and subscribe to the channel to listen to more horror stories. Jack walked up to his face unchanged. He didn't laugh and talk happily like every time the two of them went on a date. His expression had drowned out the smile that had just blossomed on Me's lips. He stood there, silent for a while, looking at the murky night river with flood water. The two stood there in silence. Between them is like a wall separating them. That wall is the growing pregnancy in Me's belly. Me also stood there, silently saying nothing. She was feeling that something was wrong. He took a deep breath, tried to look natural, and turned to look at me after a moment of silence. His gaze made me feel that in front of her was a complete stranger, not the gentle, romantic Jack she still loved. But she was completely surprised by his question. "Have you thought it through? Do you want to marry me?" She was extremely surprised by his question. It seems to be in line with Me's wishes. But she still felt that something was wrong. "I agree. We will get married. I will take care of you and our child." After that sentence, Me's emotions seemed to burst out. Happiness seemed to erase all doubts in her heart. She hugged him tightly as if she wanted to hold on tightly to the love that she and him had been hiding for so long. It was as if she was afraid that if she just loosened her hand, the river would sweep away her love. He turned to her and whispered in her ear, "I will love and worry about my mother and children. Rest assured." Then he smiled, a smile of affection. But if someone noticed, they would see something strange in his eyes. "Come on, now get in the car, I'll take you to eat. Let's go eat you, I'm so hungry." "He hasn't eaten dinner yet," he whispered to me. Me is obedient like a rain-soaked cat hugged by its owner, patted and dry. She followed him to the car and went out to eat with him. Go to a fancy restaurant. The two ordered a table full of delicious food, an expensive bottle of wine, and dishes full of Me's favorites. Me is immersed in happiness. She thought that the heavens were treating her very well. After a lot of hard work, she got Jack and Jack really loved her. And then the two of them will live together, thinking that Me is happy in her heart. She ate very well, and she didn't seem to notice it, so she was too much. Glass after glass Jack pours me and gives me a drink. After dinner, Me was drunk. Jack escorts me to the car and drives her home, taking me to Jack's bedroom. Me lay there asleep and dazed in the wine yeast that was gradually seeping into her blood, and the love yeast was surging in her. Jack came to her gently and caressed her, loving her as if it were the first time they had wrapped their arms around each other. Also in this room, the two were immersed in happiness. But then who would have expected that after having sex, Jack let Me fall asleep? He gently got down on the bed, cutting off the small monofilament used to hang the rideau curtains. Then he wrapped it tightly around his two strong arms and approached me, who was lying down. He hesitated, but then his eyes lit up the striped casino behind him with an iron determination. The demon in his body was rising and urging him. He was determined to get closer, clinging it through Me's white neck that was beating with every breath of intense sleep, where the blood vessels were still swollen with her heartbeat. Me didn't know that Jack was going to kill her. She is still peaceful in a deep sleep, immersed in love. And then his arms tightened, and he pressed on her, the rope tightening. He used all the strength he had to squeeze that cruel rope around Me's neck. By this time, it was too late. Me struggled, stretched. She scratched Jack's firm hand. Then she tried again to remove the rope that was strangling her neck, but to no avail. Her eyes went wild, upside down, only white remained. His eyes opened and sparkled with blood. In those eyes there was hatred, resentment, the one she had loved, the one who had ruthlessly killed her and killed his child that she was carrying. By now, she realized that it was too late. In the last moments of her life, she tried to struggle and scratch to escape. But how could a woman's weakness resist the strength of that murderous man? It was the last meal of her life, the glass of wine that sent her to the other world, and the last passionate love affair was what Jack called his last favor before he killed me. As for him, he was sitting on me's stomach. His hands were clenched, his eyes were suffocated, and as he squeezed, he shouted, "You have to die, you have to die, you can't use that terrible thing in your stomach to intimidate me, to ruin my plans. You wouldn't have died if you hadn't had children. Let me see you off sooner, let me continue with my plan. You have no right to ruin it." He squeezed and screamed, until he saw that me was no longer moving. In front of him was me's body, naked and hot, her eyes wide open, and she stared at him intently. His eyes contained extreme resentment. Those eyes were still staring at him now, like resentment, like hatred, as if they would follow him to the end of his life for revenge. He sat there sweating like a shower. He felt that it was so cold tonight. He had just killed someone, he had just taken a life. Well, not 2 lives is right. It was so cold, he began to tremble, but sweat kept pouring out. The space was so quiet that he began to feel afraid. The room was so quiet that it made him feel as if he heard the joints of the other corpse gradually solidifying. He began to be confused. My mother is dead. What should he do? He was extremely confused. He walked back and forth in the room. He scratched his head, he thought. He was racking his brains to think. He must make this matter smooth. Otherwise, he would be in big trouble. What should I do to mourn here? And a flash of light flashed in his mind. A cruel thought that he had never thought of. He was thinking of a horror movie he had seen. Night. In Luna's bedroom, the night light suddenly flickered and then turned off. The room was pitch black, only the flickering light of the high-voltage light bulb outside the street shone in through the window. The wind began to hiss, and the windows collided with each other, making a rattling sound. The sky was about to thunderstorm. It must have been a thunderstorm after many days of sunshine and drought. The wind whistled through the trees and rustled like the sound of ghosts moaning somewhere out there. Suddenly, a lightning bolt flashed across the sky, shining clearly into the room where Luna was sleeping. The rumbling of thunder startled her awake. She had just experienced a nightmare. The nightmare was terrifying. And that cruel thunder brought her back to reality. Her whole body trembled with fear. It's been a long time, she hasn't had any dreams in her sleep, but now she has such a terrible nightmare. Cold sweat spilled out like a shower. She reassured herself, thankfully, it was just a dream. But even though it was just a dream, it was terrible anyway. In her dream, she dreamed of a man trying to kill a woman after he had sex with her. The girl died in extreme pain in strangulation, suffocating. The murderer's eyes were devoid of humanity, and the eyes of the dead, those resentful looks even in her dreams, she could not forget. Why is the room so dark? It's raining and windy out there. Obviously I turned on the night light when I went to bed. Luna wondered as if to reassure herself. She raised her hand to quickly wipe the drops of cold sweat that were still on her forehead. She reached out and turned on the switch the night she slept next to the bedside. The light does not come on. The rain was getting heavier and heavier outside. The rain and wind were screaming in the night, and the 2 windows were rattled by the wind. Luna was unconsciously afraid, not only because of the nightmare just now, but most of all, why did she feel so cold in her room today? It was as if there was some kind of metaphysical force present here. The rain was too heavy, and through the window, she got up and approached to close the window, but when she got close to the window, she looked out into the wide courtyard right in front of the house. The courtyard was hazy in the rain. There was the shadow of a long-haired girl, dressed in white and soaked in rain, standing right there. She tried to reassure herself, rubbed her eyes to concentrate, looked closely again. A little lightning struck her. Goosebumps. The blue light of the lightning clearly illuminates that courtyard. And suddenly she couldn't see that white shadow anymore. Leaving her dizzy and sleepy, the shattered spirit Luna returned to bed, but as soon as she closed the window and turned her head, she screamed in horror, and in front of her was a woman with long hair covering her face. She was dressed in a white suit, soaked in rainwater, and was walking towards Luna with her hands dirty as if she wanted to strangle her. Luna screamed in extreme fear. She rushed to her bed, covered with a tight blanket, and trembled violently. The mouth shouted, "Dad, there is a ghost in the house." David's father, "The house has ghosts, spoils." Hearing the muffled screams of his daughter in the next room, Mr. David rushed to break down the door, and naturally he turned on the light bulb with his hand, and the whole room was stunned. KY changed the electric light bulb to be bright as usual. However, when Luna turned the switch on and off forever, the light did not turn on. Mr. David saw Luna sitting on the bed. She was covered in a hoodie, screaming miserably. The floor of the room was covered with rainwater pouring in from the window. Mr. David ran back and hugged his daughter and comforted her. "Daddy, Daddy, it's okay, there's a daddy." Luna was like a drowning man with a stick. She tossed the blanket and hugged her father, sobbing. "Dad, I have a ghost in my house, I'm very scared." David hurriedly comforted him. "Son, it must be because you have been working too much these days, so you have an illusion, but what do you do in my house?" "Well, there are 3 here, don't be afraid anymore." Luna cried and told David. "Dad, that ghost is very ugly. He was wearing white clothes, and his hair was loose and soaked. He also raised his hand to strangle him to death. I'm very scared, Dad." When it rained heavily and the power went out, I closed the window, and I saw him standing in the yard. Later, he was cowardly in this room. He's standing in the corner of the room. I'm scared. Mr. David didn't know what to say, but he patted me. "Okay, I know, it's okay, son, I'm here." Having her father by Luna's side felt more secure. She fell asleep with her head in her father's lap because she was too tired and scared. Outside the rain, it still rains heavily. The white shadow stood quietly in the rain and looked towards the window of the room where Alana was sleeping. Mr. David saw that Alana was fast asleep, and he gently put her down on the bed, carefully pulling the blanket over her and turning the night lamp down. Then he quietly closed the door to his bedroom. In his mind, there was a constant line of thought, who is that ghost? Why haunt Luna? He was a successful businessman and materialist, so he never believed in demonic things. He only thought that Luna, his daughter, due to too much attention and work and perhaps too much work pressure, caused her to think miscellaneously and hallucinate. Thinking so, he told himself that he had to reduce his work and take care of Alana, so he turned off the electricity and went to bed. It was also late at night at about 12 o'clock. At 2 a.m., the phone rang to wake Luna up. The echoes of the ghostly incident a few hours ago still scared her. But the fear has subsided. She also thinks that she thinks too much, so she gives birth to hallucinations. Then she reached out and held the phone. Jack's number is strange. Why is he calling me at this hour? Hello, I heard this. Jack, what's the matter with calling me so late? On the other end of the line is Jack's voice. Can you come here with me? I need you right now. In Jack's voice, there was no longer the calmness of ordinary days, but panic interspersed with it. Luna noticed it very clearly. What had just happened to her and Jack's phone call just now gave her a hunch that something was wrong. He was about to ask Jack what was the matter and why he was so worried, when the other end of the line hung up. After thinking for a while, Alana finally decided to drive to Jack's house to see what was wrong. Alana loved and worried about Jack in her heart, so she defied everything to come to him. So she hurriedly grabbed her shirt, grabbed the phone and the car lock, and she went down to the garage and drove away into the night. Mr. David was tossing and turning and still could not sleep, and when he heard Alana's car in the garage, he was startled and thought about running downstairs to ask where Alana was going to go so late. But before Alana had time to act, the car sped away. She was uneasy about her daughter's strange actions from the evening until now. Then he thought for a moment. Outside in the pouring rain, Mr. David put on a coat, put on a raincoat, grabbed a motorbike and quietly followed Alana. It's raining too heavily tonight, maybe it's stormy. Alana drove on a deserted road. The yellow street light surged out in the night rain, making the road seem wide, desolate, and cold. She pressed the accelerator, accelerating the car to rush through the road, leaving behind her the white night rain. Arrived at the gate of Jack's house. She didn't ring the ringer, but quietly took out her phone and dialed Jack's number. In her heart, she was afraid that the noisy night would attract the attention of the neighbors and disagree, so she didn't ring the bell. The phone rang in her ear, and later. Jack picks up the engine. Hello, brother, I'm here, come out and open the door for me. On the other end of the line, Jack replied with both joy and urgency. I'm waiting for you to come out right away. A moment later, Jack opened the gate, carrying a large sack on his shoulder, which seemed to be very heavy. Alana was about to ask what it was, but Jack stopped her. I opened the trunk of the car and let me go quickly. Although she didn't understand what was going on, Alana covered the umbrella with one hand and opened the trunk of the car like Jack said. After putting the sack in the trunk of the car, Jack said, "Wait for me, it's too heavy, there's more." Alana turned to Jack and said, "It's very heavy, let me carry it with you." At this time, I don't know what is inside the sack. But Alana saw that Jack had been sluggish for a long time before he could carry the sack to the car, and then it was completely soaked in the rain. She couldn't stand still and look at it like that. She loved and loved Jack very much. Alana didn't say anything and just quietly walked into the house. Alana followed right behind Jack. When the two disappeared behind the big gate of Jack's house, a dark shadow from a distance was watching the actions of the two of them from now on. That shadow was none other than himself and Mr. David. Although he was very curious to know what Jack and Alana were doing, he still tried to hold back, continuing to nestle close to a large tree nearby and observe. As soon as she stepped inside, Alana suddenly felt a terrifying shiver. It made her feel like it had been uninhabited for a long time. The cold, the gloom of the house made her feel shivering, chilling, goosebumps and hair on the back of her neck. Jack led her into the bathroom where the other bag was kept. This sack looks a little smaller and lighter than the previous sack. Jack turned to Alana and said, "I'm here to help you with a hand." Alana didn't reply, but quietly approached. Once again she felt a rush of welding air running down her spine, giving her goosebumps. The feeling of the wet and sticky sack chilling her and the strong fishy smell of the bathroom made her have a bad premonition. She was about to ask Jack what a sack was, but she stopped. She was afraid that Jack would be angry. Now, in her Jack is everything: love, happiness. Because of her love, she can do anything for Jack without much thought. Then the two of them joined forces to carry the second sack into the car. When Jack closed the trunk door, a lightning bolt across the sky shone clearly on his evil face. That face now became frighteningly calm and cold. Then he got into the car and drove away. The rain was getting heavier and heavier every time. The wind seemed to scream in the thick black rain. The rumbling thunder makes anyone in that situation tremble. But for Jack now, he was thinking about the bridge he worked on every day. That place will be very empty now. It was the most suitable place, he thought. Just drive there and throw down the sack. Who knows what's going on? And he thought that in a few days, people would be able to pick up 2 sacks that had drifted out of the sea and he had nothing to do with it. He glanced at the clock. It was more than 3 o'clock in the morning. He pressed the accelerator for the car to soar away in the rain. Luna and Jack didn't say a word to each other the whole way. The two were quiet and let their minds go with their own thoughts. After less than 15 minutes of driving, Jack arrived at the familiar bridge that he still passes by every day on his way to work. The white kilometer 13 landmark located on a blue background illuminated by floodlights looks dim and monstrous in the pouring rain. Reaching the middle of the bridge, Jack slowed down, the black figure wearing a raincoat, turning off the headlights of the motorcycle following Jack's car just now also slowed down and stopped completely. The shadow of David's raincoat was blurry, which Jack and Alana could not recognize from a distance. He had been silently monitoring Jack and Alana's every move until now. He still silently watched the two of them in the dark to see what they were doing. And he always kept a certain distance enough not to be detected. Jack stopped the car. The murderer opened the car door. Alana also opened the car door and followed him. Suddenly, he turned his face to the right with a flash of lightning across the sky, clearly illuminating the murderous face of the handsome face Luna had once loved, now cold and emotionless. His gaze was frighteningly cold. Luna covered the umbrella for him. He opened the trunk of the car, and slammed the sack heavily. Then he walked up to me and threw it down. The second sack was the same, but he naturally felt like it was much heavier than before. He had to work hard to be able to carry the second sack on his shoulder. Seeing that he was struggling so hard, Luna held the umbrella in her other hand to lift with him, and finally after many efforts, he was able to chamfer the sack to the side of the bridge with Alana's help. Then he threw the sack into the river without the slightest pity in his heart. When he was done, he brushed his hands and smirked. For him, this matter was over. What he did was only known by heaven. He was sure of his secret. Suddenly, when he and Luna were standing and watching the two sacks drift further and further along the water, a lightning bolt crossed the sky. A blue light shone on the assassin's face, shone on the face of the accomplice without knowing that he had become an accomplice, and the face of the black shadow who witnessed the whole process from beginning to end. And the most obvious is the sign of KM13 with white letters on a blue background, which is very conspicuous. It rained like a diaper. The rain was like mourning, like crying. The wind was blowing like a resentment of life, hating the one who had ruthlessly murdered, the one who had ruthlessly let the person he loved die without a corpse. He was no longer a human, he was a demon in human disguise with unimaginable cruelty. Then he would have to pay the price, pay for what he had done. After everything, he got into the car and left calmly. Today's part is over. Remember to subscribe to my channel to motivate me to make longer videos. Thanks everyone.